Okay, so the keyword we're going to be looking at here is a film degree worth it? So this keyword definitely has informational intent, but if you weren't sure, you could always go into SEMrush and they'll tell you what the intent is. And I'll say this is accurate probably about 80% of the time, okay? So there are situations where it has a hard time deciphering what the intent is, but for the most part, if you want a quick glance, SEMrush will do this pretty well. But most importantly, the best way to really understand intent is to go into Google and manually look. But before we do that, let's just quickly look at the difference between Ahrefs and SEMrush in an analysis like this. So what you want to do is, the first thing is, we look at the keyword difficulty, it says easy, okay? But this doesn't really tell the whole story, all right? This is a good way to vet keywords, to filter through a lot of keywords. But this is just step one. And if we look at SEMrush, it's kind of the same story, right? It's claiming that it's easy to rank for. So what you want to do is go down and look at who's actually ranking here. Now, I would say this is one of the biggest flaws of SEMrush, and it's that it doesn't show the overall domain authority or domain strength of the websites that are ranking. And so you can certainly narrow this gap on the page level, but if you don't narrow the gap on the domain level, it's not going to work, right? You're not going to be able to get there. Now, that's why Ahrefs is better in this case, because Ahrefs will actually show you the DR, okay? And this is just Ahrefs' metric for determining how strong a website is. But what we want to do is we want to look at first the keyword difficulty, which is just how many links do we need to the specific page to rank, okay? So that's stage one, but we also want to look at how strong does our website as a whole need to be to rank for this. So what I did is I actually clicked export here and I put this into a Google Sheet so I can show you. So a couple things you want to see here. So what I've highlighted in green are competitors that we can beat, okay? And so in this case, this is the URL that I'm going to be analyzing here. This is going to be the URL that if this was my site, these are the things that I would do to improve the rankings, okay? So this is going to be our target here. They're currently ranking about number 23, okay? Now, a couple things you want to see here. So when we look at those search results, a couple good signs. We see that Reddit is ranking. We see that Quora is ranking. We see that there's a forum ranking here. And then also on top of it, we see that there's other pages that are already outdated that are ranking. So 2022, and they put it in the URL, which means that if they want to be able to rank in 2023, they're gonna have to 301 redirect this, okay? So this one is already dated. And then this one here isn't actually super optimized for the keyword that we're going after. So that's a good sign. But on top of it, they have a weak website. Okay, so with a domain rating of 37, not very strong. This one here, once again, very weak website, another weak website. So basically when I'm analyzing the results, I'm just looking for weaknesses. Okay, can we actually rank based on what I'm seeing here? Okay, that's it. I'm just looking from a pure strength perspective. I'm not looking at the content. I'm not doing any of that. This is just a pure high-level overview to see from a link building perspective, which is the biggest ranking factor, can we actually rank? And so our example here, the website that we're trying to improve has a DR of 76. So 76 is high, and that's actually higher than almost a lot of websites that are ranking. In fact, it's even higher than the site that has captured the featured snippet. Okay, so that's a really good sign. So right out of the gate, this site is ready to rank. And so what you're going to see is the reason why it's not ranking is it's not a link issue, it's a content issue. Okay, so one other thing I want to show you is just looking at the Google search results. So when we look at the search results here, you see a couple things. This is important. Like don't just go to Ahrefs or SEMrush and use their data. Like you need to see it in real time. Actually go in the search results, actually see what's going on. And so what I like to do is I just want to see what are we working with here. And there's no advertising on this particular keyword. So that's a good sign, which means the organic traffic potential is going to be much higher, right? So there's not ads pushing this down below the fold, which means organic CTR will be much higher for this keyword. Now, the most obvious thing here is we have a featured snippet, okay? So we need to make it a part of our strategy to try to capture this featured snippet, okay? So we'll want to analyze this page and see where is Google pulling this from on their page. So if we go and look, we'll go ahead and see, and we'll just copy this little section here, and then we'll see where is Google pulling that from. So it looks like it's pulling, so they basically just repeated the primary keyword in 2 spots. They put it right here, and then they did a nice little paragraph here to capture that featured snippet. So we would want to do something similar, right? So we'd want to put a heading like this and then do a nice little 2-sentence summary of whether getting a film degree is worth it or not, okay? And you can use ChatGPT for this example, right? So you would take this and just say that we would want to create something very similar, okay? And I'll be showing you in a second how to use ChatGPT to create this type of content. But the point is, we want to see what's going on in the search results. So featured snippet, which we're going to want to work to capture. There's also a people also ask. So this is a section that we'll want to use to see if there's relevant opportunities to create supporting assets around this keyword that we're going after, okay? And then go down here, once again, we have Reddit ranking, which is a good sign because usually these are pretty thin, not super high quality or structured, so we can beat them with a very in-depth article that's very structured. And also right here, there's Quora ranking, okay? So that's a good sign. Whenever I see this, I get very excited. Now, one thing too, and this is something to take note of, Google does have, they use EEAT, which stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, okay? But in this example, I want to talk about the experience part of this equation. So Google, and first, those are not ranking factors according to Google, but they might indirectly affect performance. So one thing is Google wants to show experience in the search results. They want to see people who've actually done what they're talking about, right? So the reason why you're going to see Reddit popping up, you're going to see Quora popping up, is because a lot of these answers here, a lot of this content you'll see is it's largely based on firsthand experience. Okay, so this person's asking, and then these people says, for my experience, right? So they're talking specifically about their firsthand experience in this particular thing. Now, this is where we can do some tricky stuff, is we can start to copy a lot of these things and feed this into ChatGPT to create an article that demonstrates a lot of experience. I'll be showing you that here in a second. Now, same thing with Quora as well, okay? So this is why these types of pages are really ranking well, or these websites are ranking well, because it's really demonstrating a lot of experience, okay? So we want to inject that into our content to make it more unique, to make it better, more interesting, and to ultimately kind of tap into these potential indirect variables that could affect your SEO performance. Okay, so now we're looking at the page, and one thing we want to do right away is just see, does this page load fast? Okay, right away, throw it into Google PageSpeed Insights and see how well it's scoring. So based on this, it's not horrible, right? But it's also not great, okay? So a lot of room to improve. I would want to get this up to at least, a 70, maybe 75 on all of these, and then I'll know that we've kind of could check that off the list. There are diminishing returns once you get to like an 80 and above. You're not going to see much of a difference in performance, more than likely. But going from 55 to a 75 or even 80, that might help you, right? So this is a very easy thing that you can fix. It's completely within your control, right? This is something where it's completely within our control to fix it, right? So we should just do it right away, because we haven't even touched the content. We're just going to improve the site as a whole as far as loading speed goes. And that should help performance across the board, not only from SEO, but also user experience and conversion rates, all that good stuff. So there's just no reason not to prioritize this. So this is the first part. Second part is we just want to look at a couple other things. So is this page just optimized from the most basic perspective? So, is the keyword in the title? Is it in the URL? Is it in the first sentence? These are all things we want to be looking at. So what I'll show you is we'll just go ahead and copy this keyword, which is the exact keyword, and we'll actually use the detailed Chrome extension, and we'll see, is film school worth it? Okay, so they've done this perfectly, okay? They've nailed the keyword in the title. They don't have a meta description. So Google does rewrite meta description, so it's not always necessary, but I still personally like to write a meta description, and Google will pick them up a lot of the time. So I would recommend just writing one, and if Google does its thing and rewrites it or whatever it does, that's okay, but at least you can check that off the list and just say, yes, I included the primary keyword in the description, okay? Next is the URL, okay? So is film school worth it? It is in the URL. I don't love this URL structure, right? So like having 5 reasons for and against, like this is all just a bunch of filler words. So I'd rather cut it off and just stop it right here, because let's say I wanted to add another 5 reasons, like 6 months down the road. I don't want to be locked into this, right? It kind of limits your ability to upgrade this content. So I don't recommend that. I would just stick with the primary keyword in the URL. that's going right off the root domain. So they're doing that right, but I just think this is a lot of fluff on the URL. And then the next thing I want to do is look at the headings, okay? So is the keyword actually in the H1? So it is. They've done that well. It's in the H1, and it doesn't look like they include it anywhere else in any other headings. So I would probably recommend at least including it in another H2, and I would do a variation, right? So maybe not this exact phrase, but just a slight variation in the H2. And then this is more a site-wide issue, this submit a story in the H4. Like, this happens a lot. You'll see this on sites, and if we look for submit a story right here, there's no reason that this should be a heading, right? This should just be a paragraph tag. It shouldn't be a heading, because we really want to value these headings. These are really important spots on the page where Google's going to crawl this and try to understand this page and try to determine the relevance of this page. So you don't want to waste these headings on stuff that's just unnecessary, right? So eliminate this, turn this into a paragraph tag. All right. So, and then also down here, it's happening down here as well. So you can use paragraph tags for all of these and then just style them with CSS. So that way you're only using your heading tags for the most important things on the page. So that's kind of like the high level way to analyze this. And then what you want to do is you want to look at the page itself and see, is this being mentioned in any other spots where it should be? So it's in the H1, which is great, but it's not in the first sentence. Okay, it doesn't show up anywhere in the first sentence. And in fact, it only shows up once on the entire page. So, not ideal, right? We should have it at least in the first sentence. And then I would drop it again here at the end, one more time. So we're not trying to stuff this keyword, but we're just trying to get it in all the core spots. So just to review, we want it in the URL, we want it in the title tag, we want it in the meta description, we want it in the H1 here, we want it in the first sentence, and we want a variation at least in the first H2, and then lastly, in the last sentence, or at least here somewhere towards the end again, right? We're not talking a ton of times, but this is just the bare minimum, right? And just to, for example, you look at this, like it's not even doing the bare minimum. So just doing that alone, even without touching the content, it probably would improve the performance. So that's the first step. Second step is we just want to look at this page as a whole. Okay, so we want to see, is it satisfying some of the EEAT guidelines? Is this a high quality piece of content? Is this a helpful piece of content, as Google likes to say? Is the experience on this site good? Okay, are there a lot of trust signals? All right, so looking at a few things, I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement, right? So a couple things, very simple. This font here, we'll go ahead and inspect, is way too small. Okay, so if we look at the font size, it's a 13, all right? So this is just very, very small, hard to read. So I would probably put this up to like a 17, okay? So you put this up to a 17, it gets much bigger, and then this would be just much more readable. Okay, so this is a site-wide initiative that can make everything more readable, but this text is tiny. Next thing is we wanna look at, is the person who's creating this content, are they an expert? Okay, so John Aldred, all right? So there is an author showing above the fold, which is great. So that's a good thing. This is placed appropriately. But we want to look more into this individual and see, is this person qualified to write about going to film school or film in general? So what I did is I actually went through and clicked through, and you'll see they got a nice little biography about him. He looks like a legit person. He's got his own personal website. He's got a YouTube channel. We went to his site, and it looks like he's got a nice little biography about what he does, right? So he is definitely qualified. He's in the field. He's definitely a good person to have bylined on the content. So they've done that well. So definitely a good model as well, for yourself when you're trying to improve the expertise of the content, right? So that's the first part. Next part is this content is outdated, okay? 2018, way too dated. So we're talking 5 years outdated. So right away, like if this was my website, I would just go for a full upgrade on this, complete revision, complete upgrade. And in particular, the reason we're gonna wanna do that is because, they did do something that was a little tricky. I wouldn't recommend it, but basically what they did is they went to this YouTube video And if you go over here, I have a little transcript and summary thing that I can run here that will auto-generate it. But if you look at this little summary here is basically the article. Okay, so we'll go over here and I'll just show you, we'll just copy network. And you'll see they talk about number 2, the network, okay? And then right here, number 2, the network. So basically what they did with this article is they just went to this YouTube video, they scraped the ideas, and then they threw it into an article, all right? So not ideal, right? We definitely want to, and they did actually source it as well. So they did source the video, that's fine. But this is just not unique content, right? At the end of the day, if you want to rank in Google, you need to create unique content. And this is not unique, and this is why this is probably not ranking super well, right? So we need to make it completely unique. And I'll show you in a second how you can actually go about doing that. Now, also, as far as demonstrating more expertise in this content, they do have an author box there, which is great. So they've done a lot of good things. They've kind of, done all the checkpoints. It's great. But one thing I would say too in the content, I would add more external links to this content, more really high quality external links to very trusted sources. So they do link to YouTube, but I would be looking for opportunities to link out to very high quality sources as far as getting going to film school or getting a degree. Like those are lots of opportunity to link to some .edu or some really trustworthy sources. Okay, so that's another thing. Now, we also want to run this keyword through Surfer. Okay, so I run it through Surfer, and what I want to look for is a couple things. First, I want to see, is the word count sufficient? All right, so we're looking at the word count here, and once again, we would want to rebuild this whole thing, so it's kind of irrelevant, but for the most part, we want to be looking at the top competitors and kind of eliminating the anomalies. So this core here is 5,000 words, clearly unnecessary, right? Because like they're ranking here with only 1,100, they're ranking with about 1,400. So, and of course they're strong websites, but regardless, we know that, in this range is probably more appropriate. So I'd be looking to go to about 1,500 words is about where I would target for this page, okay? And they're already about 1,400, but they need to create something that's a little bit better. Now, the other thing you want to do is you go up here, and this is going to be important to look at these NLP keywords, which is natural language processing, which really just means relevant keywords, okay? So what we want to do is we want to add these keywords to our content because it makes our content more relevant. Now, when we look at this, they've really missed a lot, okay? A lot of keywords are not included. And that's why, rebuilding this from scratch is probably the best idea. So what I did is I actually took these, exported them over to the Google Sheet here. And the reason is because I wanted to take these ideas to put it into the ChatGPT prompt, okay? Now, before I do that, a couple other things with this content, just to kind of reiterate this point that it needs to be upgraded. I always run the existing content through Hemingway just to see how well it's written. It's honestly not written too poorly, right? It's doing okay. It's not bad. Ran it through Grammarly. It's getting a 79. So definitely some room for improvement here with the content. And then one more time, I'll always run it through this newer tool, which is originality.ai, just to make sure that it's showing up as original, okay? So very important. So those are kind of 3 quick things you can do just to improve the overall, quality and uniqueness of the content. But like I said, most of the time when I look at content like this and I see it's outdated, I'm just gonna go for the full upgrade, right? Just to scrap it, start over, build it from scratch, make it better, okay? That's it. That's the best thing you can do, because just trying to piecemeal this all together and throw it all together is just, it's too difficult. So rebuild it from scratch. Now, there's a couple other things. You do need to focus on making sure that the site has the topical authority to rank for this, okay? So we know that it has the link authority to rank for this, right? So we'll go back here and we'll look. It has the link authority. It has a 76, okay? Yeah, they could certainly get more links on the page level, but most of the pages that are ranking here aren't super strong, right? So, but we know that they have the overall domain strength from a link building perspective to rank for this. So what I'm more concerned about is, do they have the topical authority to rank for this? Now, there's a couple ways you can check on that. First thing is go into Google and just do the site : search with the domain, and then include whatever one little keyword from the primary phrase. So in this case, I just did film. And what I want to do is I just want to see, do they have other articles about film in general, this very broad topic? And based on what I'm seeing, they've talked about film quite a bit, like a lot. Okay, so that's a really good sign. The other thing I want to do is actually want to go a little bit deeper and go into film school. Okay, so now we're getting into the primary keyword here. And this is important to do because it can help you do a couple of things. First, it can see where are we lacking? Like where can we add more depth? Where can we increase our topical authority in this little tiny cluster? Okay, very important. You can see that right away. But what it does as well is it can actually help you identify keyword cannibalization, right? So within seconds, I can see we have multiple pages here that are built around almost the exact same idea, okay? So these 2 pages here are actually going to hurt this page's performance. So what we want to do is we want to take these 3 pages and consolidate them into one. So I would get rid of these, and then of course I would just build a brand new page for this idea, and then 301 redirect these to this new page. Now, at this point, since it hasn't been ranking well, and this is from 2018, it hasn't been ranking well, I'd probably just build a new URL with the appropriate URL structure, which is, we'll go back here and so you can see, but like I would just want to get rid of this completely and just make this the permanent URL, okay? And then what I would do is I would 301 redirect any other asset that's going to be competing with this. So if it's targeting basically the same exact keyword phrase, then it needs to be consolidated, right? We only want 1 page per target keyword phrase, okay? And the only time that we're going to create a separate piece of content is when it has a different intent. It has a different set of results. And the way to know that is just to go right into Google and see, you take the other keyword and see, is Google showing you different results? It's the easiest thing you can do. And if they are, then you should create a separate asset to support it. Okay, so that's the first part is, first see, do they have the topical authority? They do. And then, do they have the topical authority in this cluster? I'd say not so much, right? There's definitely some room to improve. But they do have some content hitting it. So definitely room to add more content. And the way to do that, there's many ways to do it, but you can obviously go into the people also ask. So we go into here, we go right back to the search results, and you can see we can hit the people also ask questions and tackle those. But what else you can do is you can actually go into Ahrefs, and we'll just go into here and we'll go to matching terms, okay? And this is a good place to look for, kind of really long tail keywords. But I'd probably actually cut this down. So take this phrase, shorten it. We'll go to more of this kind of like body phrase here. And now what I can see is we can see a lot more keywords, okay? A lot more different relevant keywords that we can attack. So for example, this is our primary keyword, which is a film degree worth it? But there's a broader keyword we can attack, which is just film degree. So we could do a definitive guide about getting a film degree, okay? We can actually go down here and look for other opportunities. Here's another one about degree salary. Okay, so we could include a bunch of salary data in a separate blog post. Okay, so there's a bunch of things we can do that are hyper relevant to what we're doing. Now, the other thing you can do is actually go into related terms, and this will expand the relevance out further. But still, once again, we're going to want to start to attack these ideas as well. But I would always start with the matching terms first, because that those are the most hyper relevant, and then move into the related terms to build more topical authority. So, and when I'm talking about topical authority, really what I'm saying is you just need to create more content, create more relevant content around these concepts without engaging in keyword cannibalization, which is this, right? This is not the way to do it, because this is just keyword cannibalization. We're creating separate assets for keywords that have different intent. Okay, that's it. All right, so now the last phase of this process is we want to rebuild this content. Okay, so what I would do is, obviously, if I was an expert in film, I would just manually rebuild this content. But there are other things you can do. And for the sake of this video, I'll just show you how to do this very quickly. And if you haven't already, go ahead and read this blog post that I've already published here, and this is on Google's experience in the EEAT guidelines. Okay, so this, and I'll have a link in the description, but scroll down here and we're going to go to the section about the prompts. Okay, so this little section here is you can use other people's experience, okay, or you can use your quote unquote experience. Now, once again, do this within your own ethical guidelines, right? I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just giving you what's possible. Okay, this is just what's possible using AI. So what I did here is I took this prompt and I modified it slightly to be relevant to what we're doing here. And then I put it into ChatGPT. So I'll show you real quickly. Scroll down here. So this prompt, so you'll see article overview, and I gave a little prompt here, all right? And basically what I'm telling it is to write an article based on first person perspective. Gave it some additional guidelines, word count, and then what I did here is I went, I showed you earlier getting those NLP keywords. I went and copied those from here and then put them into here. And you can use this cool little tool if you're ever wondering how to change a list into comma separated. I'll just show you this one right here. You just literally throw it in here and it will do a comma separated list for you, and you can copy it and then just throw it into this section here. So what I'm doing is I'm feeding the AI the keywords that it needs, okay, to create something that's really, really relevant. So go down here, and then lastly, what I did is I went to Reddit and I went to Quora and I took all of these opinions, okay, and put it in here, okay? Because what I want is I want the AI to create content from a first person perspective. I want it to be really experience driven. Now, we'll go ahead and take a look. I went ahead and submitted this, and actually there's a word count limit here, so it didn't let me do the whole thing. And so you can see right away we created something that already looks pretty useful, and it needs some editing and needs a lot of things that need to happen to it. But within a few seconds, we created something that's probably already better than what's currently ranking here. Okay, so very easy way to attack this. This is what I would do, right? Set that target word count, create something unique. You can use AI, you can build it from scratch, whatever it is. But just make sure you include real experience in there, because this question is really based on experience. Like, is film school worth it? People want to hear from people who've already done that, right? Maybe they invested in film school and it was a horrible idea, or they did invest in film school and it was the best idea they ever had. You want to see both perspectives. So figure out a way to get that unique perspective in there, that unique firsthand experience, and it's going to make this content much better. Also, go through and do all these other things that I've mentioned. Once the content's created, you do definitely want to go through and run it through Hemingway, run it through Grammarly, and then I would make sure to inject these keywords appropriately to optimize it with Surfer. You can actually use the content editor on Surfer to do that a little bit easier, but then go through and rerun the audit. And then most importantly, once you've done all that work, I would go in here and I would make sure that you add more visuals, more unique content, more visual content in here that's unique, right? Add that through here, break up the content. And then once everything is done, you've got a fresh piece of content, the images are updated with the appropriate date. Then what you want to do is update this publish date, okay, to the current day. And then if you want to add another level of depth to this as far as optimization, I would go into the title tag and the meta description and I would change this to, is film school worth it in 2023, okay? Make sure that the URL stays the same. Don't add the year to the URL, but include it in the title, include it in the description. That can help drive some more long tail traffic. So that's how I would rank for this keyword. That's how I would improve this page. Hope that was helpful. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I publish a lot of videos like this where I do really in-depth analysis on how to rank in Google, because it's what I do for a living. And so if you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.